Okay?
How much time, as far as the length of this, what would be the length of the question answer period?
Maximum 45 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. So, welcome to this CEO Roaster. Herzlich willkommen zu dem CEO Roaster. Wir haben heute eine ganz interessante Firma, es ist die Champion Iron Minerals. Und wir haben heute sehr interessante Gäste, und ich bin schon sehr gespannt auf die Diskussion, die sie herstellen wird. Und zwar sehen Sie bei uns im Team Erwin Matula. Erwin Matula ist Chefanalyst und Editor beim Mining-Scout.de und er kennt die Firma in- und auswendig, hat erst vor ein paar Wochen eine neue Analyse darüber geschrieben und ja, wir sind schon ganz gespannt, wie er das Management oder die Company natürlich ein bisschen in die Mangel nimmt. Und Sie sehen auch ein Foto von, das steht darunter, Tom Larsen, ist nicht Tom Larsen, ist Jeff Hussey,
Hussey.
Hussey, Chef Hussey. Jeff Hussey ist Geologe, Senior Vice President und vom Company Development und er wird jetzt die Company präsentieren. Hello, thank you for coming and that you have time to discuss the latest news by your company. So, we have some interesting news, or we saw some interesting news in the last few weeks. So maybe you can explain a little bit what this means for the company.
Well, recently, just over a week ago, we announced that Michael O'Keefe is going to be joining the proposed merger, where Michael O'Keefe would join the company as executive chairman and bring some of his network to the board of Champion. This is a very exciting time because Mr. O'Keefe, with his track record of project development and networking capability to the capital markets, is exactly what we are looking for in the company. So as you well know, since 2009, we've developed a very significant portfolio of projects that are closest to the port of Sept-Îles, with infrastructure that exists. And so what we're doing now through this proposed merger is to bring together proven track record project developers with financial capabilities and marry that with our excellent project profile. So this is one of the things that the Labrador Trough, by interesting someone with the profile like Mr. O'Keefe, it brings a lot of credibility to the Labrador Trough. He has been present with Mamba Minerals in the Trough, and now after looking at the distribution of companies and project profiles has decided to, we're proposing this merger, which should close in April, so it's very exciting times. We are continuing to de-risk the projects by developing more rail solutions. We're working with the Quebec government and stakeholders, and that as well will be a significant milestone for the company going forward.
Okay, when we go to the presentation, what is the best slide to explain your project?
Well, this one here, the existing rail infrastructure, we could talk to that slide if you like. Mm-hmm. Where you see on the right is the railway that leaves Sept-Îles, goes up through Labrador and all the way up to Shefferville. That railway was built back in the 50s. And in Labrador, you see that it turns west and goes to the mines in western Labrador. Mm-hmm. That is what we call a common carrier. That is one of our options on how to get our iron ore to the port. You can see our projects in red. So we could either build a railway that goes north. That's what we looked at in our preliminary economic assessment. But you see a red line going from our projects down to the port. That's a proposed new railway. And this would be much more efficient and it would be the first phase of a new rail infrastructure that would continue further north for the other iron ore developers. So right now we're working with the government and other stakeholders to look at this as a solution. So the objective of that new rail infrastructure is to make a multi-user railway with open access to all the developers at a low cost, because we all know that the rail infrastructure is, or the rail transportation cost is a large cost center for iron ore mining. So what we're looking for is a way to lower the cost of rail to make our development and our future mines more sustainable.
From which size we are speaking? It is a 250 or 300 kilometers, or what?
Yes, from the red projects, and you see that red thick line in between the two railways. So there's, I wish I could point to the slide here.
You can point it if there is one on the right side called Zeiger, and you can use this, and then you can show the people here. Okay. I think this is this one.
Can you see the mouse moving? Is that me moving?
No, that's I'm moving.
I see it on. Okay. So the railway, you can see on the right, it's written QNSNL Railway. That is the common carrier. If we go to the left, there's a thicker red line. That's the new proposed railway. And if you go further to the left, there's a greenish line, a thinner line, that is the ArcelorMittal private railway. So we don't have access. Even though that railway goes through our projects, we don't have access to that railway. So we have access to the one on the right. It's more expensive. We would have to go to the north, connect with it there, turn right, come south, and that makes a much longer route, and the rail transportation costs are significantly higher. In our PEA, we estimated it at about $15 per ton. In the new railway, it's rather than that route being 530 kilometers, the red line is 310 kilometers, which goes directly to the port. When we look at the costs, as you can see later on in this presentation, the cost per ton would be closer to $5.
Okay.
But what we have to do is finance that rail. So in the economics that you see in the presentation, there's actually a financial plan for $1.1 billion, and also the financing of interest, which combined add $10 to the cost. That was published for the purpose of releasing the study. That is not our plan. Our plan is to work with the government and other stakeholders to find a way of financing that rail so that the costs are closer to the $5 a ton plus a marginal amount. In other words, it is going to be structured as a cost center for everyone. That's the concept. So by doing that, we have the potential of reducing our operating costs by $5 to $10. And that is the concept that we're working on. Once we have clarity on the decision of that railway, then we will be going towards feasibility. So currently, the Quebec government has announced that they have put $20 million aside to look at this. So what will be happening is an evaluation of the new railway and comparing it to the existing rail structure, and they're going to do a study here before the end of March to figure out which is the best rail transportation system to encourage the development of the iron ore industry in Quebec. So that will be very helpful for us, because if the new railway is chosen, which we hope, and that our opinion is it is the better solution, we will have a direct link to the port at a low cost, and will participate in helping develop the rail for the other developers to the north. So this is one of the significant milestones that we have been working on for the last 2 to 3 years, and we're continuing to do so. So once we have clarity on rail infrastructure solution, we will be quickly moving towards feasibility and financing. So that, combined with the recent announcement of bringing in very high-level project managers from the iron ore industry in Australia, it's quite exciting to have this coming together at the same time. I can continue on here if you like. Go ahead.
I think Erwin has some question.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm right if I say that the old contract with the old harbor is cancelled. Is it correct?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat, please?
Can you hear me all or not?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe you can tell it to him if the connection is too bad from my side. What I was asking for is the old contract with the harbor is cancelled. I know. Is there another contract with a new harbor in sight, or is it depend from the railway development?
Earlier this year, we terminated our contract with the port. The objective, or the reason, was basically to conserve cash for the company. Yeah. So we have continued to our discussions with the port, and as soon as there is financial, as soon as we do a major financing, we will be going back to the same port and renegotiating access. So there is a big interest on our part to work towards that objective, and our hope, and we feel that the port would welcome us back once we're able to fulfill the financial commitment. So it's really just a conservation of cash decision. There was a large payment, and we decided that we wanted to continue our efforts on the studies of the feasibility rather than making that payment. But our objective is to return to the table, renegotiate, and get access again at a later date once we're financed.
Okay. As I have understood, till March, you expect a decision which railway system will be the best for you. Is it right?
That is the objective, but it's in the government should be giving us an announcement as to what they have announced that they're doing a pre-feasibility study. We're working with them to discuss what the options are, and they will be making an announcement very shortly as to what direction. But our objective is to get clarity by March so that we can get into the field as soon as possible and use the field season next year to do field work.
This is a new feasibility arranged by the government, because there was an old feasibility. It was terminated last year.
Actually, yeah, so that's a very good question. We have completed a pre-feasibility on this railway solution from our project to the port. The government have announced that they're doing a pre-feasibility, but actually it's more of what I call a peer review. So they're going to get a third party to look at existing infrastructure, a new infrastructure concept, and compare the two to determine which is better to develop the iron ore industry, the key interest being open access for all, functioning as a cost center, in other words, at competitive rates, like I was saying earlier, and also that it has the capacity to go beyond 100 million tons upwards of, say, 150 to 200 million tons eventually. The reason for that is if you look at our projects and all of the other projects, there is the potential, and there's a slide at the end of our presentation that shows the potential, if all the projects develop, to go to above 200 million tons per year. So we have to make sure that whatever rail infrastructure choice is selected, that it's able to meet that long-term objective.
Yeah. The
And
number
the main part
property
being
is in the
the-
near
the-
the one of the proposed railway lines.
Pardon me?
The
you
project
repeat, please?
of Mamba, the old Mamba, is it in the near of one of the projected railway lines?
Yes, if you look at Labrador, the railway goes up to Shefferville. Mamba's Snellgrove project is 65 kilometers to the east of Shefferville.
Okay.
Yes, so it's 65 kilometers to the east.
Yeah.
So it is within that reach of the northern part of this railway system.
So let me ask, please, are there any bigger changes in the master plan of the company after the merger? Or are your champion property is first priority? Or are there any news in this kind? Hello?
Yeah, during the conference call last Monday, it was clearly stated that the focus is to develop consolidated Fire Lake North. This is the project that is closest to development, and it's also closest to infrastructure solutions and the port. So the objective would be to continue on the development of Fire Lake North as the first priority. And I'm sure once we sit down and we finalize the proposed merger, that we work on a mid to long-term plan at looking at Snellgrove and when that would come. But the focus will be, as soon as we get the rail clarity, then we will be able to attract financing, and we'll be looking at strategic partners to develop, finance, and start the plan to construct consolidated Fire Lake North. So that's the shortest route to production, and that, I'm sure, will be the focus of the new company when the merger is complete.
Thank you.
I would like to add, if I could, just when we look at the rail infrastructure, it is a very important part of what we just talked about. And there's people within the team of Michael O'Keefe, Mr. Richard Wright, who built one of the largest rail infrastructure projects in Australia. He's associated to the Roy Hill project, which is an $8 billion iron ore development project underway in Australia. So this is the kind of depth. That's exactly right. That's the point we're trying to make, is that with their project management skills and development skills, their access to international financial markets, this is what I think will bring a lot of strength to our story, where we have a high-quality project, we have a clear path forward, and now we're combining with a team that will be able to take us to the next level.
Was the experience in the railways one of the reasons for this merger with Mamba?
I think it's the overall experience in the iron ore industry, knowing the end users. If you look into some of the details of the presentations of Michael O'Keefe's team, Mr. O'Keefe was with Glencore at the early days of Xstrata. It went from a 200 million market cap to about a 2 billion market cap in the early days of Xstrata. We know that Xstrata is now the 5th largest mining company in the world. Yeah. If we look at Mr. Wright, as I said, he was a key developer in a 1,400-kilometer railway system in Australia for the iron ore industry, and also was project manager for the Roy Hill, which is an $8 billion iron ore story in Australia. And also there's a gentleman by the name of Barry Wright, who was a key person involved in Fortescue. Fortescue is an iron ore company that has done phenomenally well in Australia, becoming the 4th largest producer in the world. So this gentleman has a geological background, but he knows the metallurgy, he knows what the end users want. They have an excellent network with potential strategic partners, not only in China, but in India. And so when you combine the project management skills, the access to end users, and to the capital markets, it is really a very potential change for the company moving forward and developing, like I say, to the next level, going towards construction quickly.
Thank you. That's fine. Another question, please. Champion Iron Mines has a strategic partner from the Far East. Yes?
Pardon me?
You have a strategic partner from the Far East, from China, in the company.
Yes, we do.
Will he remain further for the future also in the new company, or are there any changes in expectation?
No, there's no changes. As far as I know at this point, Mr. Ma and the Bao Tu Chinese investment company are welcoming the merger, and so they will continue. And as well, it's a very good question that you bring, because they have a very extensive network in China and towards end users, and so that's very important. As we know, China is the largest customer for a lot of the iron ore. We are lucky that not only Mr. O'Keefe has his network in China and in India, and what I can say about the technical, the quality of our iron ore, it's also of interest to Europe. So the higher end steel products made in Germany and elsewhere, this material is very high quality and is welcomed by all end users, and so we look forward to talking with them once we get closer to that stage for an offtake agreement.
That's fine to hear. Thank you for this comment. Joe, please.
I have one question about, I saw before I go to the presentation that the capex cost around 1.4 billion.
Correct.
At this time, it's really tough to finance this kind of projects. So what is your strategy here? Offtake agreement, I think, is not enough to build this mine.
No, there's a couple of different ways to finance. If we look at the benchmark of Consolidated Thompson, the Bloom Lake development that occurred back in 2010, if you look at how that deal was put together, you're right, you can't do it all with an offtake or a strategic partner, but it is a good beginning. So in that case, 25% of the project was sold for an investment of $250 million and a 25% offtake. So that was the deal that was struck back in, I think it was January 2009. And that's a pretty good deal post the crash in 2008. If you look at what was going on back in 2008, that was the deal that was struck. So with that, it allowed Consolidated Thompson the strength of go to the debt market, which also helped their share price. And so that after some debt, they went to the equity market and raised the rest as they developed. But that was the initial catalyst that allowed for that model of financing. Another model is to look at strategic suppliers. If you look at the capex of 1.4 billion, about 600 million of that is the concentrator. So there's people that we have talked to. There's the potential to get a turnkey solution for the mill, and that would be half of the financing. So if you take that route and you get half of your financing through a strategic relationship with a supplier and maybe an export credit agency or something of that nature, then the next step would be debt and followed by equity. So once you get that initial catalyst, it'll definitely help the share price to work towards some equity financing. But obviously, those are one of the two options that we would look at first. Before we go to that, we want to make sure that the story has more strength by de-risking the rail. And I'm sure with the capabilities of Mr. O'Keefe and his team at that point in time when we merge, that'll bring a lot of strength to find debt vehicles and, again, to go to the equity market at the appropriate time.
I think your market cap is at the moment, I read this on the website, I think only 25 or 27 million. So you have a lot of delusion when you finance nearly 1 billion through the equity market or so. But okay, that's the other story. So it's a few years ahead. But do you see really opportunity, or do you in discussion with offtake agreements and so on?
Just 1 second, please.
Ja. Jetzt haben wir ihn verscheucht, Erwin.
Endgültig geschafft.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question with regard to the market capitalization? Is that the?
No, the point is only that, okay, with the market cap and you go to equity market, you have a lot of dilution when you raise a few hundred millions. But do you already in discussion with offtake agreements and you have some term sheets so far, or you're thinking only to do this?
Yeah, again, when you go to talk to either offtake partners, strategic partners, you want to have the project de-risked. Currently, the financial market is soft, but with regard to the last 3 years, we have talked to several potential end users, but no, we don't have any term sheet signed at this moment in time. But our discussions are advanced. There's been a lot of due diligence done on the company. People know the quality of the projects. What is missing, we come back to that same point, is a rail solution. And now we're advancing on that front. So then as the project gets de-risked more, it's more appropriate to go to these, to negotiate these agreements when your project is more de-risked. You'll get more value. So we're focused on the rail, and then we will go to feasibility. Then we will look for a strategic partner.
Okay. Do you have I think, yeah, here, this is the timeline. So,
yes. So this timeline, the reason for the yellow star is again associated to the rail. As soon as that is finalized, then we can confirm this timeline and put out the feasibility. Our objective here is to be in production at the end of 2016. That may move a little bit depending on the speed of getting this rail solution confirmed.
Okay.
So our plan right now, as Tom Larson and Michael O'Keefe stated in the conference call last Monday, was we would like to be with completed feasibility next year this time. Okay. And then, so this timeline may shift just a little bit, but not too much.
So, and you're already in the permitting stage. So your permitting is already started, and you do all the work what you must do for this.
For the permitting?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our environmental social impact study is quite advanced. We're, I would say, 80 to 85% completed. We put that on hold to conserve cash again and earlier this year. But as we complete the feasibility and the impacts are known, it'll be quite quick to go to permitting. And it's in the interest, as far as the permitting goes, what we have to consider here, a couple of things. One is we're surrounded by 5 mines. So we're in a mining camp. The beauty of iron ore is that you grind the material, you mix it with water, you use gravity and magnetics. There's no real chemicals. It's physical separation. It's very well known. The tailings are essentially silica sand. So the impact, although there is a large footprint, the impact on water is very controllable. This is very well known. The permitting process is a known process, and that should not be a delay. On the social side, we have been in touch with the communities, the First Nations. We have worked since the beginning when we were doing exploration. We have gone in to see the First Nation, tell them what we're up to. They know our story very well. We had an MOU with them on the rail, and as soon as we get clarity that that project would go ahead, I'm sure we'll be able to sit down and work with each of the stakeholders and move the permitting process forward rather quickly. That to me is not a big challenge, if you will. I think it's a known process, but first we have to get clarity on the rail in order to make that agreement.
Okay, what I really miss on this timetable is financing.
Well, the financing will come in as soon as the feasibility is completed.
Yeah, but do you not think that only 1 quarter between the feasibility and the construction starting is not a little bit a short time to make only the financing in 3 months for this kind of project?
Yeah, when you look at a project like this, we don't wait for the feasibility to start the financing process. Mm-hmm. We do these things in parallel. Mm-hmm. So as we've said, we've been looking at 2 different models for the financing, and we've been working on that for the past couple of years. It's just that you don't go to the financing until you de-risk the project sufficiently. So this work has been going on in parallel. We're not waiting for the feasibility. We have options and irons in the fire, pardon the pun, but we have options very much advanced, and the 2 options that I described are quite well advanced. We have term sheets with international banks that have financed mega projects in the mining industry. We have talked to suppliers, export credit agencies, end users, and other strategic partners. So all of these discussions have been ongoing. It's just that I'm not going to announce anything this morning. We're waiting to do what we were just discussing, de-risking the project further by finding a rail solution. And of course, as we stated earlier, with the proposed merger with Mamba, with their strong connection to international capital markets, I'm sure we'll be able to put together rather quickly a financing package once the project is at that stage. Mm-hmm. Okay. When you go to sit down with financial partners and you tell them that you have a clear rail solution, it's much easier to negotiate than the current status where we're at right now. We also want to work on our market capitalization, and we're starting to see strength and change of direction. The other big point, if we look at the last year, with respect to, if you look at all of these projects, the sensitivity to risk by banks is largely based on the main variable, iron ore price. So if you like, I could talk to that point just a little bit and tell you how things have changed in the last year. And I think today we see much more clarity in the forecast of the iron ore price. Last year and in the past few years, we've seen the iron ore price get quite soft in the end of the third, fourth quarter. Last year, I think the iron ore price averaged most of the year around 130. In October, there was a crash to $85 for one day. The average for that month was $100 a ton. And if you look at the 3-month average, it was closer to $115 per ton. Our project, as you look at the slide, I think the last slide you had up for the CapEx, you see that we use $115 per ton. In the first, go back one more. Right there. So the iron ore spot price assumption that we use in the bottom half of the slide is $115 per ton for the first 5 years and $110 for the remaining 15 years. Mm-hmm. So again, last fall, the iron ore price dropped down to 85, and a lot of people keep quoting that number, but if you look at the 3-month average, it was closer to 115. That turned around quite quickly and rose to $160 in January. So if you still, again, look at the 3-year moving average, it's around 115. This year we've enjoyed to see the price stay around 130, 135. It's getting close to 140 right now. China broke through they were headed that way, but they're producing half of the world's steel. They produce as much steel as the rest of the globe. And in order to forecast the iron ore price, you have to look at what the analysts are saying and forecasting. But what we've said for a long time, and this comes from different analysts here in Canada, is that the government needs to house, 3 years ago, we're looking at housing 300 million people over the next 10 years. So they've been on that rate of construction. And here in Canada, we're about 35 million people. So we say it's like building a Canada per year for the next 10 years. So this is the order of magnitude of industrialization in China that's going on, which in our point of view gives support to this $115 per ton. And at $115 per ton, you can see the economics are quite robust.
Okay, that was the biggest question from my side. So, Erwin, your part.
No, I can confirm what you're saying, because I have spoken with a Chinese fund manager at Mines of Money in London, and he has spoken the same words like you about the growth of the Chinese population and the need of some iron and steel.
It's quite phenomenal. It's been really the turnaround started, as we know, in 2002. For decades prior, the price range was $15 to $30 per ton. And since 2004, with this rate of industrialization, we've all seen the price go as high as 180, 190. We've seen it come down below 100. And I think this year what we have seen is that variability is less. And it has held around 130, 140. It's going to be variable going forward. That's the nature of the mining market. But we're quite confident that the 115 and 110 number that we're using in our feasibility is very close to what the forecasts will be going forward. And as I said, it leads to a very robust economic model. If you go back to on Monday, Mr. O'Keefe, that's why he's interested in the Labrador Trough. We feel that if we can get our product, as you see in our operating costs, to the port under $45, we can be competitive globally and reach the iron ore market in China in a competitive way. What we want to do, as any operator always does, is to control our costs. So the cost that we can control is our rail transportation, and that's why we're working so hard on developing the right solution for rail.
Okay, thanks from my side. Joe, do you have some questions more?
Not so far, but maybe we going a little bit to the presentation. We find some other points, but it's interesting. Okay, the product.
Right here, this is important right here, the metallurgy.
Yeah.
So these two pictures show our iron ore. When you look at the iron ore that comes from the Mesabi Iron Range, which has been mined for the last 100 years in the United States, or north of our projects, we call it a taconite ore that is very fine grained. In the southern part of the trough, where the mines are, the ones that have been producing for the last 40 years, and where our projects are, this is what the ore looks like. So on the picture on the right, you see that the ore is about sand size. In the slide, the third point says we liberate at 850 microns. This is compared to further north, what we call the taconites. They liberate at 45 microns. That's 20 times finer. The difference between our iron ore and the iron ore to the north is an electrical consumption that we're 15% of what it takes to liberate the ore to the north. So this coarseness allows us to not only have, in the area we have low price per kilowatt hour, but we also use only 4 kilowatt hours per ton versus 28 to 30. So that's a 7-fold difference to our benefit in electrical consumption, which is a large part of the operating cost. So that's one point. The coarseness is key. On the left is a picture of what I call, it's specular hematite, but I call it spectacularite. And the reason for that is that it's very coarse grain with very little silica. When you look at our forecasted mine plan, we forecast 9.3 million tons per year for the 20-year mine life. However, at the beginning, in the first 5 years, there's a large portion of the ore type on the left, the spectacularite, the coarse grain material, which leads to a head grade that's actually 33% in the first 5 years. And also, the throughput rate is much higher. So we're able to produce 9.8 million tons of concentrate in the first 5 years. That's what adds to the robustness of the economic model, is to have a higher rate of production in the first 5 years. So that's very beneficial. The other point in the metallurgy which gives strength to the quality of our ore is the fact that it's low in aluminum, silica, and all of the other deleterious elements that steel mills do not like. It's very low in this ore and in this concentrate product. So end users want access to this type of material. They like the material from the Labrador Trough, and we have a very good product to sell to them. So that there is quite a high interest rate, which brings us back to the discussion we were having earlier about strategic partners. There is an interest for the higher quality product. This type of iron ore allows you to dilute other ores that have, maybe they're high in aluminum or titanium. With this type of material, it allows you to dilute those other deleterious elements, and so it's very attractive to end users. So we expect to have a high level of interest for our iron ore going forward.
Okay, then maybe look to other.
This was very
this slide here
information we got.
Yeah, this is
so we
just
can
a
see the
projection.
difference to the other projects. Very much more better. And you got a 65 to 67%. You are also in the position to get a bonus for the quality.
Oh, a very good point. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for pointing that out. When we look at the iron ore price, it is based on 62%.
Yes.
So this product will be 66%. The premium per 1% it varies. It goes between $2 to $5. It's even been higher than $5. So for each percent, you could see anywhere from $8 to $20 premium on top of the 115 forecast.
Very attractive.
So that helps us with the part that we cannot control is the shipping costs from Canada to China, which is more than Australia or Brazil, say, but with this premium, it kind of balances out the shipping cost, if you will. So it's a very attractive point. That's why I find that this concentrate is probably the highest quality available because of its purity and because of the high content of iron credits.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Sure.
So maybe I think.
We can.
Yeah, I think the rest of the project talks about the difference. Maybe we could leave it there for a sec. What we have is a feasibility or preliminary feasibility on Fire Lake North.
Yeah.
Under study on Fire Lake North is 1.2 billion tons. So when you look at the first point, the $3.3 billion, 8%, the IRR and the payback period, that's based on one production line. So let's just do some simple math to allow you to qualify the rest of the portfolio. In order to get 9.3 or 9.8 million tons per year for 20 years, we will mine 23 million tons of ore. At 20 years, that's 460 million tons of ore resources that would be processed in that model to get these economics. At Fire Lake North, we have 1.2 billion tons under study. So the recommendation in the preliminary feasibility is to double production. So Champion has the potential to as soon as we get going with some cash flow, we could double production. We can drill off the rest of the deposit. Our permits and our design has we're doing a footprint for the concentrator to double and even quadruple that production. Now, how do we do that? Well, at Consolidated Fire Lake North, we have 1.2 billion tons. If you go back later, when you want, you can go back to the slide and see that there's 1.2 billion tons under study. It needs to be further drilled, and in order to do that, we just need some more money to go in and finalize that. I'm sure we could develop those resources. But on the third point here, the oil can deposit, last year we drilled off close to 2 billion tons. Within that 2 billion tons is 1 billion of iron oxide. That's detailed on our global resource slide. So that is another 1 billion tons that is only 6 kilometers north of where we plan to put the concentrator. So if we go back to the 460, say 500 million tons gives you these economics, oil can shows us a longer term potential to go and get 1 or 2 more production lines to the north. So the mid and long-term growth profile of this company is second to none.
Is there any?
So that's quite exciting. But first step is to start with the 1 production line, de-risk the rail, get 1 production line, get some cash flow, look at financing the second one, and then within 6 kilometers reach, we could go further and double that. So we have the potential to go to 2 or 4 production lines, of course, with financing. So the potential and the future is quite bright.
Is this a goal from the company or an option, or is it also possible that the company will sell oil can, maybe, because your thoughts are the Fire Lake North is place enough for the next 20, 30 years to produce?
Yeah, that's a good question. At this point in time, there's no intention to vend it, but as all companies, we keep all our options open. At this point, with the volatility in the iron ore price, a lot of the larger companies were sensitive to capital expenditures. And so it wasn't a good time in the recent past, in the last year, to look at vending projects. We don't need to vend the project. We're financed. We have $12 to $15 million in cash, and we benefit on the cash front for the company. We benefit from getting a 40% return on our exploration dollars. So we spent over $50 million in the recent past to drill off this resources. This year we got over $10 million that came back from the government, and we see about, it has to be audited, but we see about that level of cash coming back. So we're financed to do our studies, but what we want to do is to go to your point that we discussed earlier, is to get the project financing, the bigger financing to get going on construction. But for right now, cash-wise, we're okay.
In my opinion,
so
Fire Lake North is,
to answer your question,
is big enough for himself. It may be helpful to finance the Fire Lake North property by selling the oil can. What's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good opinion. At this point in time, I guess my answer would be that there wasn't a good market to vend a project like that because. Yeah, exactly. Going forward, as I said, we keep all our options open, and at this point, there's no plan. But if there's interest, we will definitely consider it.
Yeah, because oil can is too much worth to sell it in bad market circumstances.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Thanks from my side.
Okay, Jeff. Thank you for your description on the champion irons and all your new stuff for coming up in the last few months. Thank you for your time. And Erwin, maybe and we can give a little bit update in or summary in Germany. I think it's better for.
I will do it.
I've better for our subscriber to read it. Thank you for your time, Jeff, and
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Good luck.
yeah, good luck.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy holiday.
You too. Thank
Ja,
you.
ja.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. So, Erwin, was ist deine Zusammenfassung, dein Summary?
Der ist noch da. An und für sich sehr gut. Wichtig ist, nähere Hintergründe erfahren zu können, wie die gemeinsame Planung jetzt aussieht, dass es dabei bleibt in der Konzentration auf Fire Lake Nord, ganz wichtig, dass jetzt nicht hier Interessen verwässert werden. Das große Fragezeichen der neuen Bahnlinie steht nach wie vor im Raum, sollte aber zumindest bis Ende März einen Lösungsansatz bekommen und ist somit auch etwas wieder, wo eine gewisse, sage ich einmal, Projektunsicherheit aus dem Markt genommen werden kann. Denn dieses Projekt lebt, steht und fällt mit der Existenz einer Bahnlinie. Ne?
Naja, was mir ein bisschen schockiert hat, ist ja, ich meine, wenn du jetzt die Operation Cost anschaust, also gehen wir da nochmal den Slide zurück.
Ich kenne die OPEX, ja.
Ja, also wenn du jetzt anschaust, die OPEX-Kosten sind irgendwo 34 Tonnen und 15 Dollar sollen aber die Bahnkosten sein, die sie jetzt kalkuliert haben, dann sind das natürlich schon extra, macht das einen riesen Unterschied. Aber wenn die jetzt runterkommen und 10 Dollar da sparen können.
Das ist richtig, aber von dieser Feasibility Study weg, die Sie gemacht haben, hat das Unternehmen, und das steht aber noch nirgends, eine neue Überarbeitung dieser Feasibility gefordert und ist dabei, es zu machen, um ganz einfach die Kosten zu optimieren, damit auch mehr Spielraum nach oben für die Profitspanne gegeben sein wird.
Naja, mittlerweile ist ja so, man darf ja nicht nur reden von Profitspanne, sondern man muss ja auch reden, dass man sich nach unten absichert. Ich meine, die letzten 2-3 Jahre waren ja nicht wirklich die Rohstoffmärkte schlechthin und wir haben ja zu kämpfen mit sinkenden Rohstoffpreisen, da muss man ja schauen, wo wir Kosten einsparen können.
Kann aber natürlich genauso auch für Eisen sein, dass die wieder einmal, ich sag, China braucht nur 1-2 Jahre aus innerpolitischen Gründen ein wenig Schwächeln in der Auftragslage, dann haben wir wieder Eisenpreise in der Größenordnung von 60, 70 Dollar die Tonne.
Eben,
ja?
eben. Deswegen muss man an der Kosten schrauben.
Das ist richtig.
Das
machen sie aber auch.
Ja, na, was mich schon erschreckt.
Die Veröffentlichung dieser Feasibilities in der M&A ist, in der Management-Diskussion ist es drin gestanden.
Ja, was mich schon schreckt.
Eine Kostenoptimierung.
Ja, ich meine, was mich schon schreckt, sind die 1,6 Milliarden. Gell? Also 1,6 Milliarden oder 1,4 das Projekt und 200 Millionen für die Railways. 1,6 Milliarden ist momentan nahezu unfinanzierbar.
Unstemmbar. Ja, das sehe ich auch so. Nur, erstens einmal, diese 200 Millionen waren zu dem Zeitpunkt, wo die Feasibility rausgebracht wurde, noch für die alte SNCF oder wie diese heißt, diese staatliche Bahnlinie als Zuschuss gedacht, die ja dann die Regierung ja die Feasibility, wie Sie gesagt haben, mangels Interesse eingestellt haben. Was die neue Bahnlinie kostet, die Sie selbst in Eigenregie planen unter Zuhilfenahme von Partnerschaften aus der gesamten Explorer-Branche der Region rauf und runter, das steht ja noch nicht fest. Und wie sich das dann in der Feasibility manifestiert, das wird noch eine interessante Geschichte werden.
Also nimmst du mal an, dass das nicht 200 Millionen kosten wird, sondern wahrscheinlich teurer sein wird?
Du musst ja diese 200 Millionen darfst du ja nicht so sehen. Du musst ja schauen, wie viel in der Feasibility auch für die Gesamt-Eisenbahnlinie eingebaut ist. Es sind ja auch bei den Transportkosten sind Zusatzkosten und Zinskosten mit eingebaut und zusätzliche Kosten für den Transport als Aufpreis für die Finanzierung dieser Bahn. Ja, du hast das ja oben bei den Direct Operating Costs, Railway Capital Repayment. Die Gesamtkosten von 1,1 Milliarden, die gesamte Bahnlinie kostet, wo sich ja Champion mit rund 200 Millionen Extrakapital plus erhöhten Transportkosten plus Zinsübernahmekosten beteiligt hat, die aber in der Feasibility aufscheinen. Das muss komplett neu geschrieben werden, wann klar ist, was die neue Linie kostet.
Mhm.
Vorher kann man nur Rätsel raten und eigentlich nur sagen, es wird nicht dabei bleiben.
Ja. Was ist jetzt deine Empfehlung jetzt, weil, dass wir es kurz zusammenfassen, weil wir sind ja schon ein bisschen über der Zeit.
Ja, wir können nicht Teile da wegschneiden, das ist schon
Ja.
klar.
Was ist dein Summary? Ist die Aktie momentan interessant oder nicht?
Ich sage, die Aktie ist im Moment interessant, weil sich hier ein relativ guter Global Player etabliert. Die Sache hat allerdings für mich noch einen Wermutstropfen und das ist einzig und allein die Bahnlinie mit der daraus resultierenden Kapitalnotwendigkeit. Die wird erst aussagen, wie gut das ganze Projekt tatsächlich sein wird können.
Ja,
Daher
aber,
ist es spekulativ.
aber wenn jetzt natürlich im März da was rauskommt, irgendeine Pre-Feasibility oder sonst irgendwas, dann könnte ja das dementsprechend auch positiv das Ganze beeinflussen und dann extra noch mehr einen Bonus raufgeben.
Natürlich, wenn, aber bis zu dem März wird wahrscheinlich nur die Entscheidung fallen, welche Bahnsysteme sie in Anspruch nehmen werden. Da wird aber noch keine Kostenerfassung wahrscheinlich dabei sein in dieser Feasibility, fürchte ich.
Okay.
Mal
Okay.
vielleicht eine Hochschätzung, aber natürlich kann es bedeuten, wenn hier Klartext gesprochen wird im Ende März, wenn irgendeine Entscheidung Richtung Bahn plus kaufmännischen Umsetzungen gefallen ist, dass dann natürlich eine Kalkulationsunsicherheit aus dem Projekt rauswächst oder wegfällt. Denn das Projekt selbst ist ja gut.
Okay, ich bin mir sicher, du wirst die Company weiter verfolgen.
Ja, auf jeden Fall.
Perfekt, dann hören wir ja auf miningscout.de, was Neues gibt sozusagen, wenn irgendwas rauskommt. Und ich glaube, das ist auch ideales Schlusswort. Ja, ich wünsche noch allen Zuschauern dann noch frohe Weihnachten und guten Rutsch.
Auch von meiner Seite.
Und ja, hoffen wir auf nächstes Jahr, dass sie besser werden, die Märkte.
Auf das hoffen wir alle, unseren geliebten Depots schon alleine zuliebe und vor allem, dass man nachdrücklich sehen kann, dass dieser Markt zwar tot geprügelt wurde, aber dass er stark lebt.
Ja, genau. Das ist ein schönes
Okay.
Schlusswort. Dann danke,
Danke, lieber Joe.
ciao,
Alles Liebe, auch dir. Baba.
danke, tschüss.